Adam Peters made the fatal mistake, and now Jaden Daniels is paying for it. Cutting Tyler Biadasz left Washington's center in straight chaos. And in a minute, I'll tell you if there's a fix. Stephon Diggs, 3 days in, already shut down all of Ashburn, and Dan Quinn dropped a line nobody saw coming. And Yankoff, the undrafted guy, is embarrassing rookies every single practice. But there's a threat that could bump him off the roster. Raise hail. I need y'all to sit down for a second, because this one's serious. Wednesday, during the joint practice against the Dolphins, Jaden Daniels had one of those afternoons that reminds you why this kid is different. In front of a crowd that included Secretary of State Marco Rubio and rapper Whale. Yes, you heard that right. Politics and pop culture showed up to watch football in Ashburn. Daniels dominated most of the afternoon against Miami's defense. And when practice wrapped, Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle for the Commanders themselves, didn't hold back in front of reporters. He said it straight up, shout out 5, best in the world. That's not just some random comment. That's a teammate, someone who sees him in the trenches every single day, saying out loud what a lot of us fans have been thinking quietly for months. And look, I get the excitement. Daniels comes off a 2025 season that ended in frustrating fashion. The Commanders chose to sit him for the final 3 weeks to protect his health after a year full of hits. He said it himself after practice. He wanted to play, he understood the decision, but it stung. And now, 8 months later, this was his first real shot at going against a team that isn't his own, and he answered the call. Practice closed with a 2-minute drill where Miami got the last laugh. An interception from Tafa breaking up a pass in the back of the end zone as time expired. Daniels was honest about it afterward. I wouldn't say we're in mid-season form. And he added there's still work to do, that there are explosive plays, but plenty that isn't perfect yet, and that both he and the whole team are still building that chemistry. That quote, fam, might be the most honest and mature thing I've heard out of Daniels in a long time. There's no ego in that. That's a quarterback who knows exactly where he stands. But, and here's the but we can't dodge, all that Daniels magic is happening on top of an offensive line that honestly has me genuinely worried. Let's break it down because there are layers here. First, the center problem. This has been brewing since the offseason. Nick Allegretti is entering his 8th NFL season in 2026, but the vast majority of that experience came at guard, not center. Adam Peters, our general manager, cut Tyler Biadasz before free agency even opened, and it sure looked like Washington was going all in on Tyler Linderbaum, until the Raiders went even harder for the free agent center and landed him. Allegretti ended up being the backup plan, and on day 1 of training camp, Allegretti strained his calf. It's been more than 2 weeks, and he still hasn't returned to the field. His 2 backups, Julian Good-Jones and rookie Matt Golban, have exactly 2 combined NFL snaps between them. 2. It's not that they can't turn into quality centers someday, but leaning on them right now at a position where the snap sits inches from the quarterback's hand. That's flat out frightening to me. And with Tunsil out, the center problem doesn't get easier. It multiplies. Second, the run game is genuinely at risk. We've watched all summer as Washington's own defense swallows up the run game in practice. Wednesday against Miami, it flipped. The interior of Washington's offensive line struggled, especially in run blocking. Chris Paul, the left guard, still has a long way to go as a run blocker. Sam Cosmi on the other side is just fine, no drama there. The zone scheme David Blau is installing should help over time. It's an athletic group on paper, but again, so much of this hinges on Allegretti getting healthy and holding up. Peters made a big bet on the interior line this year. We're about to find out if that bet pays off. And this brings me to a point I want to hammer home. Blau's offense needs a functioning run game. There's going to be a ton of play action. A lot of the design depends on the defense respecting the ground game. If Washington can't run the ball consistently, the pressure lands right back on Daniels to be Superman every single Sunday. And that, fam, is exactly what this coaching staff does not want. Not after a 2025 season where Daniels' durability was already a constant talking point. Third, Josh Conerly. We spent a lot of the summer talking about this being the breakout year for the right tackle. After a brutal start to his rookie season, he had a much stronger second half, and that growth built real excitement. This offseason, he trained with Tunsil, reshaped his body, and everybody was expecting a big jump. Wednesday was not his best day. He got beat badly on one play, plus a penalty. He won some battles, lost others. That's typical for any position, but here's the real issue underneath it all. Washington cannot afford for Cosmi or Conerly to hit a rough patch. With the questions on the left side and at center, they need the Cosme and Connerly duo to be a genuine strength, not one more unknown. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm ringing every alarm bell without nuance, because that wouldn't be fair. It was one practice, and Connerly had already made up for his rough start with better reps later on. The good news, and this one actually put a smile on my face, is that Brandon Coleman looked really good for most of the day as another option in the trenches. So it's not all fire. But here's my honest opinion, no filter. I believe this offensive line is, without a doubt, the single biggest risk to the entire 2026 season for the Washington Commanders. Bigger than any doubts about Durante Jones on defense. Bigger than any receiver room debate. Because it doesn't matter how talented Daniels is. It doesn't matter if Kinlaw is right and he really is the best quarterback in the world in his own head. A quarterback cannot survive a full 16, 17-week season if the protection collapses every third play. We've already lived that story. We already know how it ends if we don't fix it. I could be wrong, bro. I really hope I am. I hope Allegretti comes back healthy next week and this becomes a footnote from the offseason. But as a fan analyzing this with my eyes open, I can't just ignore the signal. This line needs health and it needs consistency now before the regular season starts. Because come October, there's no more time for experiments. Okay, I needed that change of pace after talking about a banged up offensive line, and this next story genuinely has me hyped. Let's talk Stefon Diggs, because what's happening with him in Ashburn is no longer just welcome to the team hype. This is real, and it's confirmed by the person least likely to exaggerate on the entire coaching staff, Dan Quinn. When Quinn was asked directly if he'd noticed more explosiveness in the offense since Diggs arrived, the answer wasn't a polite little yes. He talked about explosive pass plays that have already shown up in just days of work, and described Diggs as a smart receiver, someone who can read zone and man-to-man equally well and find space on his own. But the line that stuck with me the most was this one. He said, "I thought they were going to be really high, and they're already past that," talking about Diggs' football instincts. Read that again. A head coach in the middle of August with only a handful of days working with a new player is already saying that player blew past his own expectations. That, fam, is not press conference courtesy talk. That's a coach genuinely caught off guard. Let's remember the backstory of how Diggs got to Washington, because it's a good one. He's from Gaithersburg, Maryland, so this isn't just some random free agent signing. This is a hometown kid, a Terp at heart, coming back home, four-time Pro Bowler. Last season in New England, coming off an ACL recovery, he caught 82.5% of his targets, the best reception rate of any wide receiver in the entire NFL. That's not a small stat, that's a 32-year-old receiver playing with absolute elite level efficiency. Washington gave him a one-year deal worth up to $12 million, basically a prove-it contract, and honestly, with those numbers behind him, that bet looks pretty reasonable. Now for the tactical part, because this is where it gets genuinely interesting. Diggs is coming in mainly through the slot, and that makes total sense if you think about it. That's exactly the biggest hole Washington had in the receiver room, and exactly where Daniels needs the most help. Traditionally, Diggs has been the outside #1 option. He made his money as the game breaker for Kirk Cousins in Minnesota and Josh Allen in Buffalo, but he explained it himself with a line I think is perfect. If you want the ball, you've got to be able to move. He added afterward that staying stuck in one spot just makes life easier for the defense. They can double you and shut down the space. A veteran of that caliber, willing to shift positions and adapt his game to add value right away. That's real leadership, not just talent. And here's what excites me most as a fan. The Diggs and McLaurin combination inside David Blau's system has massive potential. Terry's still Terry, the quiet heartbeat of this offense for years now. But now, with a second elite level receiver sharing the field, opposing defensive coordinators can't dedicate all their attention to just one guy anymore. That opens up space for Daniels that simply didn't exist last year. It opens up space for the tight ends. It changes the entire geometry of this offense. Dan Quinn also made a key point. They're bringing Diggs along slowly, building up the reps where he feels comfortable first, then adding from there. That's smart roster management. Nobody wants another injury before the season even starts, especially not with everything already going on up front on that offensive line. My honest opinion here, and I'm giving it to you with the confidence this this tape has earned. If Diggs holds even 70% of the production he had in New England, this becomes one of the best starting receiver duos in the entire conference. And I'm not saying that off cheap August hype. I'm saying it because Diggs' efficiency numbers in 2025 weren't a fluke. That was real consistency against different types of coverage. The one thing that does give me a little pause, and I want to be honest with you, is health. He's a 32-year-old receiver coming off a torn ACL 2 seasons ago. That's the one real question mark in this whole story. But if the body holds up, fam, what's coming with Diggs, McLaurin, and Daniels could be something special. And to close things out, I want to tell you the story I enjoy telling the most on this channel, because it's the classic underdog tale that makes you fall in love with this sport all over again. Yankoff, tight end, undrafted free agent out of UCLA in 2024. This kid has not come down from the clouds all through training camp. The list of people speaking highly of him is already long, and it's coming from serious names. Nikki Jabvala of The Athletic wrote back in late July that Yankoff had just made the best catch of the entire Commanders camp. JP Finley of NBC Sports Washington has been tweeting some version of "seems like every day Yankoff makes a crazy play almost daily." And Grant Paulson, another respected voice covering this team, put it plainly. He said the Commanders need to find a way to keep Yankoff because he catches absolutely everything and is an elite athlete, a weapon in open space and in the red zone alike. When 3 different voices in local coverage keep landing on the same player, bro, week after week, that stops being a coincidence. Let's run through his backstory quick because it adds even more weight to this moment. Through his first 2 seasons, with Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator, the offense leaned heavily on 11 personnel, leaving most tight ends out of the equation entirely. Across 20 games played, Yankoff totaled just 18 yards of offense on 2 catches. 18 yards across 2 seasons. A player who was basically invisible on offense, outside of his special teams role. But this year, everything changed, and it changed for 2 reasons that lined up at exactly the right time. First, David Blow came in as the new offensive coordinator, and his philosophy uses tight ends far more often within play designs built around play action shots. Second, and we've got to say this one honestly too, John Bates is injured and out of practice, which opened the door for Yankoff to work with the first and second groups. And instead of wasting the opportunity, the kid grabbed it with both hands, literally and figuratively. Now let's be honest about the full picture here, because I don't want to sell you a fantasy. The road to the final 53-man roster isn't easy for Yankoff. Ahead of him in the tight end pecking order is Okonkwo, the new star signing at the position who's going to lead that room without question. Then there's John Bates himself, who steps right back into a starting role once healthy. And there's also Ben Sinnott, who's been earning more reps lately in 12 personnel packages. It's a deep group, and Washington, under this coaching staff, has historically kept 4 tight ends every single year. Yankoff's spot is not handed to him. But I like a whole lot more than the last one. If he keeps building this level of trust with Blau and keeps showing up in red zone in third and short moments the way he has been, it becomes really hard to leave him off. And even if he never lands a starring role in the starting offense, his special teams value alone already earns him serious consideration for that final roster. My honest opinion here is simple. I love this story because it represents exactly what this Adam Peters and Dan Quinn coaching staff says it's looking for constantly. Players who earn their spot through work, not draft labels. Yankoff, keeping it a buck, has earned every second of attention he's getting right now. And if he closes out training camp at this level of consistency, it wouldn't shock me at all to see him turn into a real red zone weapon during the regular season, even in a secondary role behind Okonkwo. And that's everything I've got for you today, DMV family. Look, we're walking out of this video with mixed feelings, and that's just what training camp always is. On one hand, this offensive line has my stomach in knots, and I'm not going to hide that from you because I come here to break things down with you, not to sell you smoke. That's a real problem that needs to get fixed before the regular season kicks off. But on the other hand, we've got Jayden Daniels confirming again why his own teammate is calling him the best in the world. We've got Stefon Diggs raising the ceiling on this offense in a matter of days. And we've got an undrafted kid like Yankoff reminding us exactly why we love this franchise and this sport. Washington is still Washington. Burgundy and gold is still burgundy and gold. And this season, y'all don't understand. It's shaping up to be one of those seasons where everything gets decided in the trenches. You already know it. If this offensive line holds up, this team can go a long way. If it doesn't hold up, we're going to be talking about another season of what ifs. Tell me down in the comments, do you trust this line to protect Daniels for a full season, or does this have you just as worried as it has me? I read every single one, I promise you that. If this video gave you something, drop a like, share it with that friend who's still sleeping on this team, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming, because next week real preseason football kicks off, and we're gonna know a whole lot more than we can only guess at today. Raise hail, always. See you in the next one.